What if I told you some of the best recipes you've never heard of were born from dust, desperation, and empty cupboards? During the Great Depression, families had no meat, no milk, sometimes not even bread, but they still cooked. And what they made will surprise you. These forgotten dishes didn't just feed bodies, they fed hope. And today, they just might feed yours too. Water pie. No fruit, no eggs, no milk. Just water, sugar, flour, and a little courage. Mothers poured plain water into a pie crust, stirred in sugar, flour, vanilla, and topped it with a few pats of butter. It baked into something strange and wonderful. A glossy, wobbly filling that smelled like hope. It wasn't quite jelly, not quite pudding, but it was dessert. And that meant something. Tomato soup cake. It sounds impossible, but a can of condensed tomato soup, flour, sugar, and spices made a soft, moist cake that tasted like spiced gingerbread. There were no eggs, no butter, just what the pantry still held. Cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg. If you had them, raisins or walnuts. Once baked, the tomato flavor vanished. What remained was warmth, sweetness, and the joy of having cake when no one expected any. Mayonnaise cake. Back then, mayonnaise wasn't just for sandwiches, it was survival. Made from eggs and oil, mayo became the substitute for both in baking. A cup of mayo, cocoa, flour, sugar, and water. That was all it took. Out came one of the softest, richest chocolate cakes many had ever tasted. It felt indulgent in a time when indulgence was just a memory. Mock apple pie. No apples, no problem. Ritz crackers layered in syrup with lemon juice, sugar, and cinnamon mimicked the texture of cooked apples perfectly. It baked golden, bubbled at the edges, and fooled nearly everyone. "That's not apple," someone would ask. And the baker would smile. Vinegar pie. Lemon meringue without lemons. This was vinegar pie. A custard made from sugar, flour, eggs, and a splash of vinegar. It came out tangy, sweet, and silky. Not quite citrus, but close enough to close your eyes and pretend. It brought brightness to a table darkened by hard times. Boiled raisin pudding, 1 pot. Raisins, sugar, water, flour, a pinch of spice. That was it. Boiled into a thick batter, then either steamed or dropped into boiling water like dumplings. It came out sticky, brown, and deeply comforting. It didn't look like much, but it tasted like effort and smelled like a home refusing to give up. Rice pudding. Leftover rice wasn't thrown away, it was transformed. Cold rice, a splash of milk or water, sugar, cinnamon, and maybe an egg went into a baking dish. Raisins, if you had them, vanilla, if you were lucky. Slowly baked, it turned into something creamy, spiced, and rich with memory. It wasn't just dessert, it was a way to use everything. Baked apples with raisins. Fall brought apples, and when they came, they weren't wasted. Cored and stuffed with raisins, butter, and sugar, dusted with cinnamon. Then baked until the skins wrinkled and juice pooled in the pan. They filled the house with a scent that made you forget, just for a moment, how hard life had become. These desserts were more than food. They were resourcefulness made edible. They were joy made from scraps. And they proved that even in the hardest years, sweetness could still be served after supper. Savory staples and sandwich miracles when meat was scarce and pennies counted more than calories. Dinner looked different. But that didn't mean it lacked care. Every slice of bread, every drop of drippings, every can in the pantry had potential. The kitchen became a place of quiet ingenuity, and sometimes the most unexpected combinations made the strongest memories. Here are the savory recipes that brought warmth, dignity, and full stomachs. 2 tables across the Dust Bowl. Peanut butter and mayonnaise sandwich. A sandwich that confused outsiders but stayed beloved among those who grew up with it. Peanut butter brought protein and fat. Mayonnaise added temps and creaminess. Slapped between 2 slices of dry bread, It was strange, yes, but filling and oddly satisfying. Some added bananas, others added pickles. It didn't make sense, but it worked. Creamed tuna on toast. A can of tuna, a bit of flour, a spoon of fat. That's all it took to create a creamy, savory sauce poured over toast. If there were peas, they went in too. If not, no one complained. It looked like something from a hotel menu if you squinted, and it made Tuesday night feel like something more. Creamed peas on toast, points toasted bread, cut in triangles, just to feel a little fancy. A quick white sauce made from flour, water, or milk, and butter if you had it. Add a can of peas and stir until creamy. Pour it over toast and serve it hot. It wasn't steak. It wasn't stew. But it felt like supper, and that mattered more than anything. Scalloped tomatoes, stale bread, and canned tomatoes, two things nobody wanted until they were baked together. With onions, a little sugar, maybe some bacon grease. This bubbling dish came out rich, savory, and comforting. The top was crisp. The middle was soft and tangy. It made the house smell like home. Gravy over bread, potatoes, or rice gravy wasn't just a topping, it was the meal. Made from flour and fat, with water or milk whisked in slowly, it became a silky, golden sauce that turned anything into food. Dry bread, add gravy. Plain potatoes, add gravy. An empty plate, add gravy, and suddenly, you had supper. Mock chop suey, no Chinese takeout, no problem. Ground beef, chopped celery, onions, and whatever else the garden gave went into the skillet. A little ketchup or soy sauce if you had it. Served over rice or toast, it tasted worldly if it came from scraps. Cornmeal mush, boiled into a thick porridge. Cornmeal mush was dependable, hot, filling, and cheap. Served soft like grits at night, then poured into a pan to cool. The next day, it was sliced and fried golden in bacon fat. Crisp on the outside, creamy inside. A hero in a pot, quiet, strong, and always there. Potato pancakes from leftovers, cold mashed potatoes from last night. Don't throw them out, fry them. Mix with flour, maybe an egg, and spoon into a hot skillet. They came out golden, crunchy, and soft in the middle. Eaten with applesauce, gravy, or just salt, they were humble magic. Liver and onions. Liver wasn't anyone's first choice. But it was cheap, full of iron, and strong. Soaked in milk to tame the bitterness, fried hot and fast in bacon grease, and served with slow-cooked onions that turned sweet in the pan. It was medicine, supper, and survival all in one. These meals weren't glamorous. They didn't sparkle. But they fed families, gave comfort, and reminded everyone that even with almost nothing, you could still make something good. You could still eat with pride. Foraged, fermented, and garden blessings. When grocery shelves were bare and paychecks disappeared, families turned to what they could find, forage or ferment. The backyard, the roadside, even the cracks in the sidewalk became food sources. And with vinegar, sugar, and salt, they turned perishables into pantry gold. These weren't just side dishes. They were cleverness in a jar. Green blessings pulled from the ground. Pickled hope. Preserved pride. Dandelion greens, bright yellow flowers. Bitter green leaves. To most, dandelions were weeds. But to Dust Bowl families, they were food-free, nutritious, and everywhere. Picked early in spring, boiled or in bacon fat. And softened with vinegar or sugar, they became earthy, bold greens full of life. Even kids who called it eating grass grew to love them. Wilted lettuce salad with hot bacon dressing. Lettuce wilts fast, but during hard times, wilted wasn't waste, it was a feature. Garden-picked lettuce was torn, not cut, and tossed with sliced onions or radishes. Then came the magic. Hot bacon grease mixed with vinegar and sugar, poured sizzling over the greens. It wilted instantly, releasing a scent that filled the house. Served warm, sweet, sour, and smoky, it tasted like more than a salad. It tasted like care. Bread and butter pickles, they had nothing to do with bread or butter. But these pickles, made from garden cucumbers, onions, vinegar, sugar, mustard seed, and salt bee, came a sweet, tangy staple. Crisp, vibrant, and canned in reused jars, they lit up winter meals like sunshine in a spoon. Some say the name came from eating them between slices of buttered bread. Others say it was just what you did when that's all you had. Vinegar coleslaw with no mayo and no refrigeration, coleslaw had to adapt. Cabbage was shredded thin, sometimes with carrots or onions, then doused in vinegar, sugar, celery seed, and a little salt. It sat and soaked, getting better by the day. Bright, crunchy, and shelf-stable, it added zing to otherwise bland meals and cut through heavy starches with ease. Fried corn, you could hear it before you saw it, corn sizzling in bacon fat, popping and browning in a cast-iron skillet. Whether it came from fresh ears or soaked kernels from the rafter-dried harvest, fried corn was fast, cheap, and deeply satisfying. Salt, pepper, maybe onion or green tomato, but often just corn and fat, crackly golden, and gone before it cooled. These dishes weren't born in luxury kitchens. They were created out of desperation and transformed by wisdom. Pickles were preservation, wilted lettuce was a celebration, and dandelions. They were a promise that no matter how hard things got, something edible would still grow, uninvited but welcome. Proteins, cans, and stretching the pantry in Dust Bowl kitchens. Protein wasn't always guaranteed. Meat was expensive. Eggs were precious. But families still found ways to get strength on the plate. Sometimes it came from a can, sometimes from organ meat, sometimes from just making something hearty enough to pretend. These were the meals that didn't just fill a stomach, they fueled whole days of work, and reminded families they weren't giving up, not even close. Salmon patties. A can of salmon bones, skin, juice, and all was mashed with breadcrumbs or crushed crackers. Mixed with an egg if you had one, and shaped into patties, fried in lard or bacon grease until crispy. These golden cakes were rich, flaky, and satisfying. You didn't need sides, just a hot pan and a quiet sense of victory. Baked beans with hot dogs. Beans were always around, but when you sliced in a few cheap hot dogs, added some brown sugar, vinegar, and a squirt of mustard, those beans became supper. Baked slow, the hot dogs curled, the sauce thickened, and the whole house filled with a smell that made kids run to wash up. It was sweet, smoky, sticky, and full of comfort. Mock chop suey. No exotic vegetables, no takeout dreams. Just ground beef, chopped celery, onions, and a splash of ketchup or soy sauce if you had it. Served over rice or toast, it was warm, steamy, and full of texture. You might not have known what real chop suey tasted like, but you didn't care. This was your version. It worked, and it fed everyone. Creamed cabbage lasted longer than anything else in the cellar. Sliced thin and boiled soft, it was folded into a creamy white sauce made from flour, butter, and milk or just water and fat. A little nutmeg or vinegar brought depth. It was smooth, mellow, and stretched well over boiled potatoes or bread. It kept us strong, one mother said, and it did. Liver and onions. Tough, bitter, and not anyone's first pick. Liver was survival. Soaked in milk to mellow it, fried fast in bacon grease, and topped with soft, golden onions. It was dense, rich, and packed with nutrients. Kids groaned, but ate. Parents said it put color in your cheeks, and during those lean years, they were right. Poverty cake, war cake. No eggs, no milk, no butter, just a boiled mixture of raisins, sugar, water, flour, and spice. First made for soldiers, then for families who stayed behind, it became a go-to dessert. Moist, dark, and perfectly spiced, it kept for days. Some added nuts, others a splash of coffee. Everyone agreed, it didn't taste like compromise. It tasted like cake. These recipes stretched the definition of dinner. They asked for little and gave a lot. A can of beans, a piece of liver, a splash of milk. It was never about what you had. It was about how far you could make it go. Leftovers, legends, and Depression-era comforts when there was truly nothing left. No meat, no milk, no eggs. Families didn't give up. They reached deeper into their memory, into their history, and into the dirt outside. They turned peels into meals, crusts into casseroles, and stories into supper. Because survival wasn't always about ingredients, it was about imagination and the will to try. Stone soup, more than a tale-it, was reality. A pot of boiling water, a clean stone dropped in, a laugh shared with the children. Then came scraps, onion peels, carrot tops, a turnip slice, maybe a bare bone. Neighbors added what they had. Together, it simmered into something more than food. It was community, was hope, ladled into chipped bowls. Hardtack flour, water, salt, that's it. Mixed into a stiff dough, rolled thick, poked with holes, and baked until it could break teeth. Stored for weeks, softened with soup or milk when available. Soldiers ate it, sailors survived on it, and during the Dust Bowl, so did families. It wasn't delicious, but it was dependable. Cornmeal mush cooked hot and slow. Cornmeal became mush plain, but comforting. Served soft for dinner, then set in a loaf pan overnight. By morning, it was sliced, fried, and crisped to perfection. Some called it Depression toast. Others just called it breakfast. It stayed warm longer than the house. One woman said that was the point. Potato pancakes. Last night's mashed potatoes weren't thrown out. They were revived flour, egg, salt, maybe onion, fried into golden cakes, crunchy outside, creamy inside. Kids stacked them like sandwiches. Adults dipped them in ketchup or gravy. No one asked if it was leftovers. They just asked for more. Rice pudding, cold rice, sugar, cinnamon, and a little milk turned into a warm spice dessert. Baked until golden on top, creamy in the middle. Raisins, if you had them. Vanilla, if you were lucky. It was the sweetest thing some families had all week. And it came from yesterday's dinner. Candied sweet potatoes, nature's candy. Sliced thick, softened, then baked with brown sugar. A bit of butter or bacon fat if butter was gone. Cinnamon, nutmeg, or cloves added depth. The sugar caramelized. The edges crisped. It tasted like dessert, but it counted as dinner. Fried corn. The sound of kernels popping in bacon grease filled the kitchen with joy. Whether fresh or rehydrated from dry, corn was a celebration dish. Stirred constantly, browned at the edges, eaten hot off the skillet. Some added milk. Others dusted with cornmeal for crunch. All agreed disappeared fast. These were the meals made with empty cupboards, worn hands, and steady hearts. Food that didn't pretend to be fancy, but ended up tasting like love. They weren't just about getting by. They were about getting through together. These weren't just meals. They were memories, survival, and love served, hot from battered pans and brave hands. Every pie without fruit, every sandwich made from scraps was a quiet act of resilience. And maybe, just maybe, they still have something to teach us today. If these recipes stirred a memory, reminded you of a grandparent, or just made you curious, share it. Drop a comment, pass this video to someone who'd appreciate it, and help keep this forgotten wisdom alive. Because history doesn't fade when we cook it. It lives one humble dish at a time.